You are listening to the Decluttering Club podcast, episode number 23. Today, we're going to dive into the invisible losses of clutter. You are listening to the Decluttering Club podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Mueller, and it's my mission to equip women to declutter their homes, their time, and their lives so that they can cherish what truly matters. Sounds a little foreboding, doesn't it? Well, it should. And I want to kind of wake you up with this episode because everybody's default, right? People who show up in my world, their default and my default used to be that I can't afford to do that. And I'm holding on to that just in case. Well, I want to flip that on its head today because I'm telling you that there are losses happening and you don't even see them. All right, so how many times have you told yourself, I can't afford to declutter, or I might need that later, or I spent good money on that? All of these things come up, and we think that by letting go of things, we are losing. We think we are losing money, we think we are losing the things, and we think that it is a net loss. We think that we will be worse off, both monetarily and, maybe like actually physically when we let things go. Well, I just want to point out to you that that is not the case. And I have some concrete examples of where this is actually the opposite. And I'm going to call these the invisible losses of clutter. Because just like when things kind of go missing in your house or, you don't notice this is happening, these losses are also happening when you are holding on to things just in case. Okay? That is the topic for today. All right. The first thing that I see that happens, and this is so incredibly common, is that when you have a lot of things in your house and a lot of things that you're not using, and remember the definition of clutter is having things in your house that are not serving you. Okay? So you decide what it is. But people that are showing up here and people in our community, they're telling me, I do have clutter, yes, but, right, ... So if you have things in your house that are not serving you, but you're hanging on to them, here are some of the things that are very, very, very likely happening. First of all, you are buying duplicates of things. Do not tell me that just because you have something in your house that you can always put your hands on it, okay? Because I know it is not the case. And the reason I know this is because I have lived it. Just because that we bought something, whenever that was, does not mean that we can automatically find it. This is very, very logical, isn't it? Like, this is not news, but yet we kind of think as long as I don't let it go, I'm going to be able to find it. This is not the case. I promise you, this is not the case. So you are buying things that you already have at home, either on purpose because you can't find those things, or maybe you forgot that you had it, so you keep buying it over and over and over again. This happened for me and this is like a little example, but this happened for me when I started decluttering. I discovered I had all of these rolls of Scotch tape. You might call it sticky tape, right? Invisible tape. Like so many, I probably had at least 10 or 15 rolls, and it may not sound like a whole lot. It didn't take up a lot of space, but it was a perfect example because every time I went shopping, I would just think, oh, I think I need that. I haven't really seen it lately. And so I would throw, a 3-pack or maybe 2 3-packs in my shopping cart, and I would come home and I would just stash it somewhere. And I had no idea that there were already 20 rolls somewhere. And, they're just sitting there. And, yeah, it's not a ton of money, but why? Why are we doing that? Right? It is a waste of money and it's a waste of space, right? And that's just one very small example. So you may not be able to find the things that you have, or you may forget that you already have those things at home if you're not organized. And, if you haven't taken a look, you may just buy things because you think you're running low when you're actually not. And, if this is important to you, then let's stop that waste from happening. Okay. The second thing that I see, the second invisible loss, is in the area of returns. Okay. So often people will buy something, right? And maybe you're buying extras on purpose because you think, well, I'm going to see which, maybe it's clothing. I'm going to see which size fits me. I'm going to keep the one I like and I'm going to take back the other ones, right? Or maybe you buy something and then it turns out that it doesn't work well or it's just not right. And so you think, okay, I will set this aside and I will take this back to the store and get my money back. Well, if we have a lot of clutter, we're probably super busy and it's so easy to set things aside. And before you know it, you have completely forgotten about that return. Either you've misplaced it or maybe you missed the return window, right? And now that money is down the drain. It's gone and we can't get it back. Right? And so that clutter, the clutter in our homes really prevents us from taking quick action on those returns and just getting those dollars back. And that can add up to a lot of money very quickly. All right. So those returns, those are what I call invisible losses, right? Because it's not like, you bought the thing, you bought it on purpose, right? So you spent that money on purpose. That's not a loss. But then when you don't return it and you don't use it and it takes up space and maybe create some guilt and some shame in your head, that is where the loss happens. Okay. So not taking back returns, invisible loss. All right. The next thing, this is huge. This one could add up to hundreds or even thousands of dollars every month. And I'm not exaggerating here. It is food waste and takeout and like sort of like not on intentional restaurant eating, but like the restaurant, the kind of like going out to eat when you just can't bear to think of cooking in your kitchen, right? Literally hundreds or thousands of dollars. This is very common. People who are stressed out, their kitchen is too messy or their house is too messy and they're just too stressed out to think about cooking and there's just no room to work. Right? This is a cold, hard cost. This is an invisible loss that is happening. And the horrible thing about this one is that it happens every single month, right? Over and over again. And this is why when people do join our membership, they discover, and when they start doing Kitchen Zero, they discover, oh my gosh, I'm saving money. My grocery bill just went down or my takeout bill went down and I wasn't even trying. It's like a byproduct. It's like a happy, unexpected byproduct when you start doing Kitchen Zero, when you start decluttering. So that food waste and that takeout and that restaurant eating, that adds up really fast. Okay, now I'm not saying you have to cook at home. I'm not saying that. I just want you to be able to cook at home and to be able to enjoy your kitchen and not buy food that you're not going to eat, right? That adds up so quickly. All right, the next thing on my list, over shopping and retail therapy. Right? This one is so ironic. It's like we have too much stuff at home and it stresses us out. So we're going to go shopping. And then we're going to bring more stuff home. Oh my gosh. But this is what happens. This is what our brains like to do. Our brains, some of us, me included, when we get stressed, we want to go shopping, right? Because it relieves that stress for a little while. Of course, it doesn't relieve it completely. It doesn't actually relieve it, just covers it up. But it relieves the stress for a little while. And then you just kick the can down the road and now your problems get bigger, right? And the piles grow and grow, right? Because of the clutter. And again, clutter can be very stressful. So if you find that you are over shopping, that you're going and doing some retail therapy because you feel like you deserve it or because you just have to get away, then decluttering, and that clutter is causing that invisible loss, and decluttering will literally relieve so much of that stress. Okay. So those are five areas that I see that are creating invisible losses for people with clutter. And again, people are telling me I can't afford to let go. I can't afford to do that. Or, I'm not the kind of person who's wasteful. I just want to show you that if these invisible losses are occurring for you, then maybe you want to reevaluate your attitude on keeping things. Okay, so what do we do? What is the answer? Okay, yes, decluttering is the answer, right? But there's more to it, of course, right? So what is the answer? Well, first of all, the answer is to notice that it's happening, right? We're just going to notice. We're not going to judge ourselves. We're not going to shame ourselves. We're just going to be like, that's interesting. I thought I was saving money, but it turns out I'm actually spending this much money on takeout and restaurant eating because I can't stay in the kitchen. Interesting, right? We just want to be aware. That awareness is really, really important and really critical, okay? And then the next thing I want you to do is I don't want you to just go in willy-nilly and start throwing stuff away or start decluttering like en masse. That probably will not work out well for your nervous system. That will probably throw you into a panic. And I don't want you to go from like keeping everything to dumping everything. That's not a good that's not a good strategy. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to do this on purpose, intentionally, and with a plan. We want to do it step by step. We want to do it in baby steps, so that our bodies and our brains don't freak out, right? If we do too much too soon, then we kind of like snap back and overreact, and then we hold on even tighter the next time. And so we don't want that to happen. I want you to do this intentionally, methodically, slowly, carefully, okay? All things that will help you ease into this and get used to it, because it's a skill, right? If you are used to hanging on to things, if you are used to keeping, quote unquote, everything, if you are used to, not cleaning up your kitchen, then you're not going to shift overnight. And your brain is going to put up a huge stink. Trust me, I've been there. Right? So we want to practice these new skills. It's going to take time to get used to them. Right? Even if you believe them and you buy into them and you think, yes, this sounds great, I'm totally on board, it doesn't mean that your brain isn't going to need a little bit of time to get adjusted. Okay? So some of the things that you may be thinking as you are getting ready to declutter, you might think, but I might need that. I might need those extra sticky tapes. Maybe I'll want to give them away, or maybe I can't find the other ones, right? So if your brain offers that one up, I might need that, I want you to do a little switch. And I want you to tell yourself something like this, right? Instead of saying, I might need that item, what if you might need that space? I might need that space. I better clear it out. Okay? Right? Because we're always prioritizing the item and we forget about the space. And then we complain we don't have enough space. It doesn't make any sense. So I want you to remind yourself, I might need that space instead of that item. Right? You could also tell yourself, I might not need that item. Like, what if I don't need it? I can let it go. Right? I might already have that hiding somewhere in the clutter. Right? You wouldn't believe how many people find things as they're decluttering. They find all of these things that they thought were gone, that they thought had been lost or disappeared. They find gift cards. Some of them are finding cash or checks that they never cashed. So you will find all kinds of good things when you start decluttering. Okay. The other thing I want you to tell yourself, and again, this is practice. These are new beliefs that we are kind of like plugging in. We're programming ourselves with new beliefs. So you may have been telling yourself for however many years, I can't afford to do that. I can't afford to let that go. I can't afford to declutter. I want you to shift that. I want you to switch it. And I want you to tell yourself, I can't afford not to declutter. I can't afford not to keep going on this journey. Right? And I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it methodically. I'm going to do it at my own pace. I'm going to do it on purpose with my eyes open, right? We're not just going to close our eyes and throw everything out and just hope for the best. No. But we are going to do it, and we can't afford not to. And why can you not afford? Why can you not afford not to declutter? What is it? Everybody has a reason. Maybe it's that you cannot bear the thought of burdening your children with the way that your house looks right now. Maybe you desperately want some peace and sanity in your house. You can't afford to keep it the same way. I just want you to think a little bit about that and just, again, flip that around and just keep telling yourself that over and over and over again. It will sink in, right? You will eventually be able to adopt that new belief. It just takes a little bit of time. Okay? So those are some of the invisible losses that happen when we allow the clutter to stay longer than it needs to be there. I would love to know what are your invisible losses? What are the things that you have noticed in your life are happening due to clutter? Leave me a comment, either if you're on YouTube, leave me a comment on YouTube. drop me an email, post in one of our groups. I would love to know about that. What are those invisible losses and how are you reversing them? And how are you recouping those? Because that's what we do when we declutter, right? We are not just decluttering for the sake of decluttering. We are not becoming minimalists, although if you want to be, amazing. We are decluttering so that we have room for what matters most. That's why we're here. That's what I have for you today, everyone. Go and I want you to demolish. I want you to slay those invisible losses and get them out of your life. We want to be doing things on purpose. All right, take care, everyone. I'll see you next week. That's all we have for you today. If you enjoyed this podcast, would you leave us a review? It would really help us get the word out. To start your decluttering journey, go to thedeclutteringclub.com. That is declutteringclub.com. I'll see you next time.